Hey, Michael, welcome to the His and Her Money Show.
Hey, Michael.
Hello, guys. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate you having me today.
We're excited to have you on because you did what a lot of people dream, desire to do, and that is pay off a ton of debt. So we're glad to have you on to share your story. But before we do that, can you just take a moment and introduce yourself to everybody and let them know what you're all about?
Sure thing. My name is Michael Lacy. I'm the creator and founder of Black Sheep Finance, where I'm a financial coach now. Essentially, my story starts, my wife and I, we had about $61,000 of debt in our early 20s. We worked really diligently and paid all that off in about a 16-month process. The motivation for becoming a financial coach for me was I believe that everybody, just about everybody in America has some sort of financial frustration, whether that be I'm learning how just to create a budget, or whether that's I have this huge mountain of debt, or whether that's I'm getting ready to invest and I don't know what my options are. And so just I feel like my role, just having been in that position and coming out on the other side, it's just kind of provide clarity to some other people as well.
Amazing. 16 months, what, $61,000? Yeah. My goodness. Now, what type of debt was that?
So, yeah, for us, that was credit cards, car loans. That was pretty much it. We were one of the few people that didn't have student loans in our 20s or a mortgage. So it was just being, frivolous with our money kind of debt.
So, I mean, you didn't say anything that was out of the ordinary when it comes to the type of debt that you had. A lot of people kind of have those in their life and they're used to it. They just figure like that's just how life is. For you and your wife, something clicked on the inside of you, and for some reason you all decided, you know what? We need to really think about getting out of debt and getting this out of our life. Talk to us about what led up to those moments where you all began to kind of change the narrative about your financial situation.
Sure. So, for me growing up, I was actually one of the few people that was actually told by my father, stay away from credit cards, don't get into debt. I was taught the principles and I just didn't listen. My first time ever using a credit card, it was I had a credit card for an emergency. And I guess, as you guys may know, when you have that as an emergency, emergencies tend to happen. And so I was way in Wisconsin. I live in Texas now, but I was way in Wisconsin and my car broke down on a weekend. And so I had to essentially use the credit card just to get back home. And so that kind of spiraled into, a bunch of other debt. We had TVs and all different kinds of stuff. And we were living kind of really reckless. My wife at the time, she was my girlfriend at the time. And so one day I was at my father's house and I left at about 11:30 that night. And saw some bright lights coming my way. And it was a tow truck driver who was intoxicated. And it was a very, very close miss on my part. However, another family wasn't as fortunate. He hit another family and 5 people lost their lives as a result of that accident. And for me, it was a real wake-up call to just kind of not take life for granted. And so from that point on, I just analyzed every aspect of my life, all of my beliefs about money, my relationship, and just every aspect of it. I just had kind of a newfound appreciation for life. So 2 months after that, my girlfriend at the time becomes my fiance. And 2 months after that, we get married. So we go to the Florida Keys for our honeymoon and we're having a great time. And then about 2 days into the trip, it starts raining. So the rest of the trip is just marred by rain. So that forces us inside on our honeymoon. And it was great because we had the chance to just really talk and map out the lives that we wanted to live. And one of the areas that we touched on was our finances. And so we tallied up our debt and all that stuff on our honeymoon. And from that point, I started finding different podcasts and books that I could read. And so when I got back home, all that stuff was waiting on me, and we just jumped right in from that point.
What a way to spend your honeymoon, like planning out your life and, dreaming and planning goals. And one of your goals was to become debt free. Now, when you guys were talking about it, were both of you guys on the same page? Both of you felt the same way? Like, hey, yeah, I'm sick of having this debt. We need to knock it out?
I was more so gung-ho about it initially. It took her a few months of, because once we laid out the plan and you start seeing kind of what you got to cut out, it starts to get real at that point. Wait, I can't get my nails done, I can't get my hair done every week. I gotta cut back on some stuff, and so it took her a little bit longer to get on board. But once we got on the same page with that, I mean, it was full force ahead.
Was that frustrating? Because we have a lot of people that listen to the show that are married and they are gung ho about changing the finances and doing things, making cutbacks, trying to find ways to get new money into the situation to improve their finances. But they're married to someone who is a little more nonchalant about it, not necessarily don't see it as, or they're not necessarily negative towards it, but they don't have the same energy about the situation. So you said it took a few months. You didn't say it took a few hours or a few days. A few months went by before your wife started to get along with the process. So talk to us about how you handled the frustration of that, and what do you think eventually got her to the place to where she was on board with the process?
Honestly, it wasn't, for me, it wasn't very frustrating, only because we had the conversation of how we wanted to live our lives. So to me, it was more so confusing than frustrating. I didn't understand. Like, we had mapped out, this is what we wanted to do. This is how we wanted to live. We wanted to go on these elaborate vacations. And, we wanted to spend all this time in Europe, 6 months in Europe, doing these sorts of things. And so in order for us to do that, these are just kind of the decisions that we have to make. And so for me, that's what helped me get her on board, is just constantly reminding her of, hey, look, these are the goals that we have, and these are just the logical next steps in order for us to reach the goals. And so I think once she started to see that this isn't a permanent deal, us not going out to eat, her not getting her nails done, those sorts of things, that's not a permanent situation. It's just until we get to a certain position to free up income so we can begin to live the life that we really want to live.
Now, you guys had great momentum, 16 months paying off $61,000. Like, how did you do that? What were some of the strategies or some of the things that you guys cut back, or you started to incorporate in order to knock out this debt so quickly?
Yeah, I think the first area that we had to take a look at was our food spending. To me, that's an epidemic in America that doesn't get talked about enough in the financial sector. The very, very first month that we created our budget and we looked at our food spending from the prior month, our food spending for that month was actually higher than our rent. So it was, when you start looking at that kind of stuff, that was the first thing we were like, okay, we got to figure something else out. We got to take turns cooking, whatever we need to do, however we can support each other in this endeavor. That's what we're going to have to do. And so, again, food spending was the first one. And then getting on a budget, like I said, sorting out our income, figuring out what was a priority, what was a necessity, and what was just kind of extra fluff. One of the things being a financial coach that we teach people is, you really have 4 things that are really necessity. The first one being housing, second one being transportation, third being food, and fourth being clothing. And not necessarily in that particular order, but, those are the 4 things that are essential that you need to live and thrive as an adult human being. And so we cut our budget down just kind of to the bare minimum. We said no to a lot of outings with friends. We said no to a bunch of family stuff. We didn't do a bunch of celebrations for birthdays and Christmas. We didn't have a vacation for those 16 months, which was hard for us because we tend to go on 4 vacations a year. And so that was something that was really hard to scale back. But again, it was just about, realizing what our long-term goals were and making those modern day sacrifices to get to where we are now.
Most people don't pay off $61,000 in 16 months. So when you talked about mapping things out and you guys created this plan, was 16 months the goal from the beginning? And how did you go about even figuring out, calculating, well, if we do this, that, and the other, we can be out of debt by this time? Like, talk us through how you guys formulated that thought process.
So that's actually a really good question, because 16 months wasn't the goal. The goal was actually sooner. And what happened, our process was a little bit delayed. I was working for this rather large company and was making a great salary. And I was essentially released from my position, was pretty much cut from my prior job. And so there was a 5-month stretch where I wasn't making the salary that I wanted to make. And then as a result of that, my wife battles an autoimmune disease. So it was a very stressful time with, me taking odd jobs with food delivery services and stuff like that, just to keep income coming in so we can keep some momentum going. It was just a pretty stressful time. And so, with her battling lupus, she had one of her worst flares. She missed about a month of work. And so that actually delayed our process by about 3-4 months.
Now, everything that you named are plenty strong reasons to quit or to pause or to just say that's not the priority. Getting out of debt is not the priority right now. But you said that you all didn't. It delayed you, but it didn't stop you. So talk to us about when obstacles arise like that, or somebody else listening, their obstacle might be different, but it's an obstacle nonetheless. Talk about, where did you all find the courage to persevere and not give up, to just kind of slow it down a little bit and then eventually get back on your feet? How come you didn't give up in the process?
Yeah, for me, I think that it came from being united with one another. I think that if those situations had arisen in those first few months where I was still trying to get her on board, we'd probably still be in debt, honestly. But it was just by that time we had been united as one. We had the same common goal. And so on the days where I felt a little weak and I needed to cry on her shoulders, she would lift me up. And on the days where she was weak, I would lift her up. And our prayer life grew really strong in that time, because that was all we had to turn to was God. And so, it was in that moment where you realize it's really not my strength, God, but, whatever your will is for us, this is what we're going to do. And so during that 5 months where I was unemployed, I actually had job offers that I turned down, because I just felt like this isn't where God wanted me to be. And so, again, I think that just kind of practicing humility throughout that process as well, was a big help. So, again, just leaning on each other, being humble, keeping God first through that.
So talk about that moment, when you guys paid off that last part of the $61,000. How did that day go? What was the process?
Oh, man. Overwhelming. That's really the word, like you said, because there were just so many obstacles during our process, with job loss, with, illness, and just kind of how the process came to be with the near-death experience that I had, and all that just kind of coming full circle. And it was just an emotional day. And that's really all I can say about it. It's just, it was very, very overwhelming, but exciting at the same time, because, you kind of come to this realization that, wow, this does work. Like, this process, it really does work. And you start to see your future differently. Your future's not marred by car payments and, credit card payments and all the stuff. You really get to kind of see, like, man, I'm going to be able to do a lot of great things. I'm going to be able to leave legacy for my kids. I'm going to be able to do, go on trips. I'm going to be able to fund these different organizations that I'm passionate about, and be able to create organizations for myself that I believe can change the world. And so you just start to see your future different. And I think just all of that coming together on the same day is just really powerful and a little bit overwhelming.
How tough was it? You talked about the different sacrifices that you all made. You guys were young. You guys were newlyweds. You guys begin to have a life of 16-month process of telling a lot of people, including yourselves, no. That is not easy. It sounds easy, but it is not easy, because especially if you have a close-knit family or a close circle of friends, those no's can be taken personal. Like, why? Like, who? That you can't hang with us no more? Oh, you married now, so now you can't come hang. Stuff like that. How did you guys navigate that? Did your friends understand? Did they not? Did your family get it? Were they supportive? Were they not? Talk to us about family and friend influence during this journey.
So I'll tell you, here's kind of the funny thing. First of all, both of us are essentially homebodies in the first place. So we're not the type of people that are just always out and about. However, when we were going through the process, we realized people just kind of stopped calling us. And so once we got through the process and we were out of debt, and, we were able to kind of hang out a little more and do some more things, what we found out was people actually thought we were broke. And so they felt bad for inviting us, because they never thought that we would be able to go, because they thought we were having financial issues. And so it was a little bit of a different situation than most people, just in the sense that, like I said, most people thought we were actually struggling financially. Because, the word budget has this negative connotation. When you say I'm on a budget, people think, oh, man, they're really pinching pennies over there. So the invites actually stopped coming, just because our friends thought that, we just needed some time. And again, coupled with the job loss and those sorts of things. So I guess that kind of played a part with me losing my job. People just thought we were in just a bad place financially, but that wasn't the case. We were actually trying to get everything together.
I don't necessarily think it was a bad thing. It could have been a blessing in disguise, because God can know how much you guys can handle. Maybe if you had that temptation of people asking you, hey, let's go on this trip, maybe you would have buckled. I mean, you don't know. Hopefully you wouldn't, but maybe you would have. So would you recommend that people let their family and friends know about their journey that they're on and kind of give them a heads up? Would you recommend that?
I think that's up to that person to decide. You got to kind of know your sphere of influence. I do believe in having at least one accountability partner that you can talk to, that can talk you off the ledge for certain things. When you're having a bad day, somebody that you can call and lean on if you're a single. However, I don't want to just tell people, yeah, you should invite your family in, because sometimes family isn't very supportive. I work with people all the time where their family is like, you're always going to have debt. Why are you focused on paying it off? And just those kind of comments can really demoralize a person. And so I think it's more so up to that individual person to know their sphere of influence in that moment. But again, like I said, I do recommend finding at least one accountability partner, whether that's somebody that you meet online in one of the, Instagram or Facebook networks or something like that, or whether that's a close friend that, you trust to run your budget by and that can talk you off the ledge when you're having a bad day.
Well, man, this story is so amazing, and I'm sure that everybody is super inspired by what they're hearing. And we're going to get more into Michael's story right after this commercial break. The Sunday Night Sit Down is being brought to you by our friends at Policy Genius. That's your go-to stop to meet all of your insurance needs, because they have a totally free tool on their website where all you have to do is put in your information and you will get instant quotes from multiple reputable insurance providers so that you can make the best decision possible when it comes time to purchase insurance. To find out more details, all you have to do is go to hisandhermoney.com/policygenius. Now, Michael, speaking of Instagram, I see that your profile picture is a picture with the one and only Dave Ramsey. So talk to us about what that was like.
Yeah, so, I am a Ramsey Solutions Master Financial Coach. And what that means is, I officially have the Dave Ramsey stamp of approval. So if you go to Dave's website and you live in the Houston area and you're looking for a coach, you put your information in, that will actually come to me. And so that process was really cool. We got to, it was a 3-month offsite training process where, we had access to different things and videos and training tools. And then we spent about 3 or 4 days at the Ramsey Solutions Center out in Tennessee on site with Chris Hogan and a bunch of the other guys. Dave was there. Rachel Cruz came out and talked to us for a little bit. And so that was just a really cool process. And then after that, we had a 3-month mentorship with some of their coaches that are there as well. And so it kind of helped us, be able to relate to people and connect with people in a different way. So that part, it's just an awesome part of the story, how it all came full circle, how he was, I found his site and his books and those sorts of things. And then now I'm, listed on his website as one of his trusted coaches. That was just pretty cool.
Michael, you said when you were in the process, your friends thought you were broke. So they didn't ask you to participate in things or invite you here or there, and they didn't much have anything because you said the phone calls even stopped. Like they weren't even checking on you like that anymore. What has been the reaction now that everybody knows exactly that you weren't broke, but that you all were fighting your way out of debt, and now they know that you're debt free? What's been the reaction from family and friends on the back end of this story?
So yeah, it's been an awesome experience with that. What happened after we paid off our debt, my wife and I, we went on a cruise with my dad and my stepmom, and it was, nobody really knew, but that for us was more so kind of a celebration of being debt free. And so once we got off the cruise, we had posted all the pictures and everybody's liking all the pictures and everything. And then we posted, once we got off, man, that was an awesome way to celebrate paying off $61,000 in 16 months. And my inbox just blew up with people like, how did you do that? Can you help me? And I was like, I don't really know what to tell you to do. I can refer you to some podcasts and stuff like that. And they were like, no, I want to know what you did. And so I just started sharing our story. I started sharing our budget. I started sharing the debt snowball forms that we used and all that stuff with people. And then people started calling me, wanting me to work with them one-on-one. And so that's kind of what led me to Dave Ramsey as well with the financial coaching thing. Is I reached out and I was like, look, people are wanting me to do this and I need some help. I need to be able to do this the right way if we're going to do it. And so that's what led to that. But since that point, it's just been amazing. I've gotten to work with a lot of friends. Actually, my first client was one of my really good friends. He and his wife, they've paid off a ton of debt now. They're getting ready to build a house. And it's just amazing to be a part of that kind of stuff where you're helping people change their legacy. They have a little daughter. And I mean, it's just really cool to think about, she's going to grow up not really knowing debt. And to see kind of what she does with the information that they're going to give her. And like I said, just being a part of that change, it's phenomenal to me.
Feels great. I love that. So what would you say were your go-to tools? We love to always have, our guests recommend, some of the things that really worked for them, if it was cash or envelopes or a certain budget tool. And if so, what site or what app? What were some of your go-to tools during this entire journey? And some of the ones that you may still be using?
Yeah, so we went through a lot of different things. We tried a little bit of everything, but what I found was that initially we did the pen and paper budget, which was really good for us. However, when you're on the go all the time, sometimes stuff doesn't get updated and put in, and it just creates frustration when you're trying to balance it all out at the end of the month and somebody missed something. So we switched over actually to the Every Dollar app. We still use it today. I love it. It's really easy to use. It's one of those things where, she can put something in and I can put something in and we both see it in real time. And so that was really cool. Another thing that we did that a lot of people don't know that you can do or maybe even should do, but it's something that I recommend all the time. We actually have a joint email account on our Gmail, and that's where all of our bills and everything like that goes. So we're always on the same page in terms of, when something is coming up, when one of us got paid, all that kind of stuff, especially for a newlywed couple. That really kind of helped us kickstart everything.
Now, you talked about this process, this journey, allowing you guys to see your future differently. So what are some new goals that you all have set for yourself now that you've accomplished this amazing goal of getting rid of $61,000 worth of debt?
Sure. So, number one goal, I guess the top thing right now for us, we have a little one on the way. And so we're getting prepared for that. And so with that comes, stuff like updating wills and, all that kind of stuff. So we're excited to do that stuff as new expecting parents. Building our house, getting involved in real estate is another thing that we're working towards right now. Investing, that's something that we're looking forward to. But the big goal that we want to accomplish is to both be retired by 45. And so when we say retired, it's not necessarily that, we both stop working. However, it's something to where, if my wife wants to continue working past that date, she can. If not, she's more than welcome to come home and work. And the same goes for me.
Well, you can't leave everybody hanging right there, Michael. How in the world do you plan on retiring at 45? What are some things that you all are going to put in place to try and hit that goal?
Yeah, so we're still operating on our zero-based budget. We're still doing that every single month. That gets done the fourth Sunday of every month in our household. So that's something that I recommend is just having that commitment to having a financial meeting with your accountability partner or spouse every single month. And then, we attack our investments with the same intensity that we had our debt. So it may not be, I won't say the exact same intensity. We're not, 61,000 in 16 months types of intensity, but we're very aggressive on our investment goals. We're into the stock market. And like I said, we're jumping into real estate in the next year. And so those types of things just kind of generate some additional passive income, things that we won't have to actually manage. And then as well with the real estate, having that income as well.
Awesome. Now, what do you think, looking back over the whole 16-month journey? I mean, it started with, a near fatal accident. It culminated with the celebration on the cruise. What do you think is the biggest lesson about life that you learned as a result of going through this process?
Great question. I think that the biggest life lesson is having a plan for your life. Essentially it all started with that, us sitting down and creating, where do we want to be in 5 years? Where do we want to be in 10 years? Where do we want to be in 20 years? What do we want to do, when we're parents? How do we want that to look? Do we want to be the type of parents that have to work all the time because we have all this debt and we're missing our kids' games and those sorts of things? And so That was, for us, the life lesson is just really having a plan and mapping out the details of your life. And then again, following a set system.
Michael, somebody might be listening and they're like, okay, I'm ready. I got to get this together. You're a financial coach. So this is about to be a coaching session right now for the whole world to hear. Somebody that's ready, they haven't started, but they're ready to start. What's step one?
Step one is to create the goal, create the vision for yourself. You have to know where you want to go before you can go anywhere. It's kind of similar to, if you leave your house and you just start driving with no direction, you're going to end up somewhere, but it may not be where you want to be deep down. So I would say have that planning session initially. What do we want our finances to look like? What type of legacy do we want to leave our kids? Where do we want to live? All those sorts of things. How many vacations do we want to go on a year? What sports do we want our kids to play? How much is that stuff going to cost? So really just kind of creating extremely vivid and detailed picture of your financial future is the absolute most important step. And then from that place, you can kind of center your budget around the lifestyle that you want to live.
Michael, why is it super important for people to do whatever they can to get debt out of their life?
Yeah, you know what? With once you eliminate debt from your life, opportunities and options open up for you. So instead of, I take for example, I was at a job recently where I was extremely unhappy with the position. We had a change in leadership and some new leadership stepped in, and it was really weighing on me. And I was bringing that frustration home, and it was creating some tense moments in our marriage. And I remember my wife looked at me and said, we don't need that salary. You can step away until you find something better for you. And so just having that kind of strength and peace, it was just something where it was like, wow, I've never been in that position before, where we don't have to rely on a paycheck every month. And I attribute that to not having any payments.
So what are some book recommendations that you can recommend to our audience that have helped you along your journey?
Yeah, so for me, I guess we'll start off with a book that I would recommend that people start off with first. It's a book called The Richest Man in Babylon. If you have not read that book, there are some solid principles in that book. Once you have finished that book, what I would recommend, one of my all-time favorites, is Retire Inspired by Chris Hogan. That helps you really get the detail and mapping out the vision for your life and creating a plan for your retirement. And then once you have the vision, when it comes to practical steps, I recommend Simple Wealth, Inevitable Wealth by Nick Murray. So those are 3 great books. If you knock those 3 out in order, it'll go from teaching you the basic principles of personal finance to creating a vision for your life and your retirement, and then how to implement steps and strategies to attain that goal.
If there's a person tuned in right now who would like to do what you and your wife were able to do and get out of debt, but they're not sure if they have what it takes, their circumstances feel a little too hard to overcome, what words of encouragement would you offer to them?
First off, you have to believe that it's possible. That's the first step, is believing it's possible. A lot of people, when they hear my story or anything like that, they like to tell themselves that I can do it, I can do it, I can do it. And I believe that you can, but the mantra for yourself shouldn't necessarily be I can do it. It should just be it's possible. And so then the reason for that is on those days where it's rough and it gets a little discouraging, you start to lose a little bit of belief in I can do it. I can do it on my own. But if you can channel that and broaden your focus just a little bit and change that I can do it to an it's possible. So-and-so paid off their debt. They paid off this amount. It's possible for me too. My numbers may be different. It may take me a little bit longer. But if somebody else can pay off their debt, I believe wholeheartedly that it's possible for me. And so just kind of having that winning mentality and believing that it's possible for you.
Yeah, I love that. So can you tell our audience more about your site and how they can stay connected with you?
Sure. So I'm on all the social media channels, Black Sheep Finance on Facebook, Black Sheep Finance on Instagram and Twitter. Website is blacksheepfinance.com. We have a blog up. Feel free to connect with me there as well.
Michael, your story has been incredible and inspirational, and we're so glad that you were able to come on the show and share this wonderful story with our audience today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.